Welcome to the Positively Star Wars Senate podcast. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi. May the Force be with you.
Looky, Senator. Decent Jedi arriving.
Let's make this our best show ever!
I will sign no treaty, Senator.
I am the Senate.
This is the way.
Hello, Star Wars fans, and welcome to Positive Star Wars Chat, because this is the Positively Star Wars Senate podcast, brought to you by the Power of the Force and OBS Studios. My name is Senator Ricky, and I'm joined here with a guest. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good day, Galaxy. My name is Anthony, 2066.
Yeah.
Or you can call me by my Legion ID, TK2066.
Yeah, we got some military here in the house. So we want to do something a little different. I thought it'd be great to get one of our listeners to, we can sit down, have a chat, find out what Star Wars happens in their world, and Anthony here seems like you're all in, so that's great. So starting off, why don't we just tell us a bit about yourself and what got you into Star Wars, and we'll have some follow-up questions.
Sure. Let's see. What got me into Star Wars? All right. For me, because I mentioned this to Ricky before he punched the record, I am an early Gen Xer. So already dating myself right there. I was taken to see Star Wars as a very naive 9-year-old. I lived outside of a little town. I live in Western Pennsylvania. Where I live now, I'm 3 counties east of where I grew up at, which is a little town called Rochester, PA. It's about 30 minutes directly north of Pittsburgh. And I lived outside the town, a couple miles outside of town. So very rural. I lived on a little 1-acre farm. And at the time, there was no Star Wars in our galaxy. And 2 girls that were teenagers that lived right across the road from us had got to become pretty good close friends with my mom and my stepdad. And this is when I didn't get to go see it until very fuzzy memories for that long ago. I want to say it was before the school year started. So I want to say late summer, August, before school started. I remember they took me and my little brother, who was 4 years younger than me, and to the theater. And the thing that still is burned into my brain of that film, I call them stories. They're all stories. The films, the streaming series, books, novels, they're all stories just told by different folks from then till now. Yet the thing that's burned into my brain is the boarding of the Tantive V4, and that is how that ship's name is pronounced. I hear it mispronounced, which sets me off. But that's a different, I don't want to side branch off or we'll end up somewhere else in the galaxy. Yeah, that boarding, watching the stormtroopers blast through the hatch. And from then on, I wanted to be a stormtrooper. I wanted the armor, I wanted the helmet, and there was no way in 1977 to come up with, unless you were really crafty. And there were some kids then that were making their own costumes. Some got really good at it, and some were just very general. And that got me hooked in right there. And it has been a part of me, a part of my imagination and wonder and love and interest in all things about that galaxy since then. That's where I started.
Cool. So, yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't conceived yet, so I didn't get to see the original in theater. I actually still haven't seen any of the OT in theater. So I'm waiting for I missed the ones that came out during COVID, so I'm hoping that when they have the re-release next next year that they're coming out with it again.
Just the original, the first film. Yeah, as I knew it was Star Wars. It wasn't named A New Hope until 1981, right thereabouts, when George came up with the thought that Empire had already been made. But yeah, he titled it A New Hope, and then it became the trilogy that we know. So, Ricky, you haven't seen the special editions in theaters from 1997?
No, I haven't seen any of the special editions
Oh
or
my!
or the OT. I don't know what happened during the '90s. We just didn't go to the movie. I come from a pretty large family, so the parents taking 6 kids to go, watch Star Wars probably wasn't in the budget. So I think that's probably why. But I did watch them, when they came out on VHS, and rented them from Blockbuster, and I used to have a bootleg dubbed, copies of, someone recorded
Hmm.
off of HBO or something like that. So that's what I would watch, the OT on when I was a kid, back in the '80s, and so. Yeah, I missed. I had merch from the special editions when it came out. I had posters and stuff like that. For some reason, it just never made it to the theater. I don't know. I was in high school, so maybe it just didn't happen. But yeah, when the PT came out, I was all over that because I was already, had my own money and stuff, so I can just go
Hmm.
every midnight showing, which I missed the midnight showings. That was always so much fun. That was where you could see people dressed up in costumes and stuff like that. Waiting in line for 3 hours. Before now you can just buy your ticket ahead of time online and show up like 5 minutes into the trailers. So, so yeah.
I can say for me as a listener of the PSW Senate podcast, and I've been listening since October of 2020 when the senators gathered together and recorded their first episode.
Right.
I'm pretty similar to the rest of the senators, being an Imperial Stormtrooper, but in the way of being a fan, for me, I don't know how to look at, or probably choose not to. I'm not sure. I argue with myself between those two, how to be critical about Star Wars. I don't see any reason about being critical, and I do hear this a bit, and I see it a bunch on Twitter. I've been a podcast listener. Ricky and I were talking about this again before he punched the record for the Holonet since 2011, and I found my way through the Star Wars podcast galaxy for, oh boy, what's it going, 13, 14 years now. He said he started the year before me, 2010. Yeah, I've heard many different thoughts, many opinions. Some I agree with, some I don't, which is fine. You can disagree with somebody about something. There's no reason for it to become an argument unless one of those two parties chooses to make it an argument, which to me, you're just wasting time. You should be having fun with Star Wars. There's so much to dig into in that galaxy instead of worrying about. I do hear folks kind of hold on to it too tight. Kind of
Yeah,
like,
they're worried if other
yeah,
people, like, why are you enjoying that?
yeah,
That always boggles my mind. Like, why do you enjoy that and I don't? You shouldn't. Like that's
they
yeah.
hold on to it too tight and even go so far as to speaking like they're involved with Lucasfilm and Lucasfilm's listening to their opinions. And I can tell you in good faith, Lucasfilm, if you can't already see it, you don't need me to tell you. Lucasfilm does hear a good bit of what we have to say, whether it's in audio, because they do listen. There are folks behind Lucasfilm walls working on productions, whether it's editing or the concept art and every other part inside Lucasfilm you can imagine. Yeah, they do listen to things that fans put out on the Holonet.
Yeah, especially
That's
they're in the middle
been
of crafting
mentioned.
stuff.
Yeah. But should they have to listen to us? No, that's not how Star Wars has ever worked. George has never listened. I mean, I understand. I get it. I love it as much as everybody else in the galaxy that's a hardcore fan, or folks that are not quite as deep as maybe Ricky and I, the rest of the senators, and every other podcaster.
I always like make the analogy like, well, nobody like walked up to Tolkien and said like, hey, I didn't like this chapter. Can you rewrite this? Can you make a different book? Like
Yeah,
we're
I
it,
just listened.
we're consumers. We're listening to the music. We're
Mhm.
watching the shows. We're watching the movies. So it's like it's like your mom or dad reads you a bedtime story. Um, you're not gonna tell them like, hey, I didn't like the don't read that one again or read me something different. Just that's the story that they're telling you that day, and you can like it, you can not like it, but you're not gonna sit there and scream at your mom. You know, for
No.
telling you a story. They're stories, like you said. I'm the same way. Like I can't rank, I like the OT better. It depends what day of the week, I'm into, or the sequel. So
Mm-hmm.
it just
Yep.
depends what I feel like watching that day. And so I can't really. People always do their rankings like, oh, this trilogy is the best, or like, I really can't because I mean, it's to me, it's all just one story. You know.
Exactly. I'm right there with you, Rick. I can't favor one Star Wars over another. Ranking and rating, if someone wants to do it, that's fine. I think it's silly.
Which brings to my next question, which is something I
Hmm.
can never answer because I'm going to always go between two or three of them. Who's your favorite character from Star Wars?
That's a hard one too. Like I said, this kind of falls under for the most part. Um, when I was a kid, and this is funny, um, because I've only ever seen pretty much every film, regardless of which trilogy, one time in a theater, which is odd, but that's me. There's a couple different little exceptions to that. Attack of the Clones, when I joined the Legion in 2001, there was a little local theater that it was a different garrison at the time in Pennsylvania.
Mm.
We went and trooped that outside a couple hours before they screened it, and then we went and dressed down so that we could go sit down and watch the film. I've seen that one two or three times because I trooped it. But other than that, every other film was just so. Favorite character at the time, I can remember going to school for whatever reason. Darth Vader, his name did not stick in my mind, and I can remember being a kid watching in late September. There were the Saturday morning previews for all the new cartoons and stuff coming up in the new season,
Mm.
and he appeared on one of those. They ran like 30 minutes, and he appeared in like a turbo lift, the door opened, and there he was, and it floored me because I wasn't expecting it. And I remember going to school for like next couple of weeks, asking everybody that who the bad guy at Star Wars, what's his name? Which was really weird. So for them, because we knew so little about him other than he was the big bad guy. So that for the
Like,
longest
was he a
time, yeah.
robot? I remember that conversation when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Was he a robot?
But
Is he a human? Like they kind of showed his head in Empire. You know? Yeah.
ever since
Yeah. It's that's funny.
ever since I joined the Legion in 2001 and getting my set of Stormtrooper armor, that's all I ever wanted to be. So
Mm.
they're an absolute work of art to me, especially the makers. And there are some you can find them. They can be hard to sort of find because most makers don't really share a lot. There are a couple, and you can find them on YouTube. One of the best
Yeah, because you need
is
like a
RS.
fabricator. You need people
Yes,
that
they make
specialize in all certain kinds of things.
yeah RS Props over in the UK in Manchester, England, are is the only maker of armor that uses one of the two founders was gifted a set of screen used sand trooper armor. He didn't know this at the time from a family member. And later on, as he got older, became friends with the other founder of RS. RS stands for Rob and Simon.
Hmm.
Yeah, they decided that Rob was already a costumer in the 501st UK garrison doing Boba Fett, and Simon was just a big fan. They decided that they were going to cast from the inside of that armor and make and sell Star Wars costumes, and that's what they founded their business on. And they pride themselves on making either production made, which means it didn't make it on screen, costume props. So you can look them up on YouTube. They usually try to post a video every Friday and Rob will make fun of this because they shouldn't be making videos. They've got work to do. They've been going at it for quite a while. They're a bunch of goofballs, but they're really good at what they do. And they're the only maker that sells armor that is made from a screen used set of armor.
Hmm.
But the other makers that do make what they're close to, they strive to get as close to as screen accurate as possible. For folks that are interested in costuming and doing like I do, I'm working on, right before Rick dropped me this, I was sitting in the kitchen working on a second set of armor that I'm making. And I'm also building 2 blaster props at the same time.
Yeah, because you guys have quality check and they inspect everything, make sure that it's screen accurate. Is that right? I think I've heard that before.
That's what every garrison in the Legion has a command team, and at least 2, 3, or 4 of those members that are chosen by the garrison commander are garrison membership liaisons. That's what they do. Is a member submitting photos takes front, back, left, and right side photographs of the costume or uniform that you're going to submit to join, and GML or garrison membership liaisons jobs are to converse back and forth, take a look at all the details, because there are details that are worked out by the Legion and the different detachments for the different costumes. Like for the detachment for stormtroopers in the 501st Legion is called the 1st Imperial Stormtrooper Detachment, or FISD. And they have an old school message board form that anybody can go log in. You can make an account. It's free. You can peruse it. It is an immense amount of information on everything stormtrooper, screen use stuff down to the smallest, and I mean micro details. There's years and decades worth of info if you want to get deep into those rabbit holes. And there are members that share how they build their costumes. You can go look at that. They hash out all the details on at least three different levels: the basic entry, and then there's a mid level that includes a little bit more detail that's more refined, and then there's the top level that is absolutely screen accurate. Members can choose to go as far and as fast with it that they want. Sand troopers have their own forums called the Mos Eisley the Police Department. There's the Imperial Officer Corps. There's Blizzard Force, which are snow troopers, and the range troopers that we see in Solo. Yeah, you can look up anything. And maybe by the end of this, because I'm absolutely, like anybody else in the Legion, willing to help somebody if you're interested in. I can show you the door and lead you the way into, and then you go from there.
That's cool.
I can go on for costuming for quite a bit, because it's one thing that does not get a lot of attention.
Yeah, because it's one thing like knowing like, oh, I want to do this, but then knowing, where the resources are, like, where can I, even define screen grabs.
In there,
what.
Once you're into any one of those different kinds of forums, or have other people near you where you live that are part of your region's garrison, no, they are absolutely ready to show you where to go, what you need to do. You're just the one that needs to pull the trigger on those different things, but they'll show you the who, how, what, when, where.
That's cool. So it sounds like it's a really like encouraging and friendly community. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I was myself. I think I would feel like kind of intimidated, but like, what if I don't have enough? And they're like, well, why'd you even bother contacting us? But
that's another thing, is you can do it as fast or slow. There's no time. Yeah. You judge the time limit on how long it takes. There's troopers that have taken 2 years to put their armor together, because real life, maybe family, maybe work, combination of those things. No, the armor standing on my armor stand next to me, because I'm single, but by myself, it took me probably 5 weeks to put together, and boom, I was ready to go. Other folks, they start it and then they shove it off to the side and do other things, and then maybe go back to it in 3, 4, 6, 8 months, 2 years later. Yeah, it's up to the person working on that. It takes you as long as you want to take.
Pesky adulting gets in the way so many good hobbies. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. What just like a follow-up question, I guess, to that. Like when I go out to events, like I told you before, like, when I go to cons, and then, Free Comic Book Day, they always have like, our Legion out here, the Dune Sea Garrison. I always see those guys out there. Like, and I have a daughter. She's a little older now. She's 14, but like when she was little, like I have so many pictures of her with stormtroopers and Darth Vader and stuff. Um, when she was then, random Jedi and stuff like that. So, um, she always, big giant smile on her face, and then on mine too. So that always, what you guys do, like the what the slogan was, what bad guys doing good, and it is, it makes it fun, for everybody. You need that, kids need that joy, seeing their characters that they see on screen. It's magical. It's a magical thing. It's like going to Disneyland. You see Mickey Mouse. He's not actually there, but in your head you're a little kid. And even as an adult, I mean, I've met Ray and stuff a couple times at Galaxy's Edge, and I'm like, yeah, that's Ray. Even though they don't exactly look the same, but yeah,
Yeah.
just seeing you, when I know that's gonna be a cool event, when I pull up and we get off the car and I see stormtroopers walking around, I'm like, okay, cool, the 501st is here. So yeah, so kudos to you guys for doing that too. And I know it takes a lot of time, putting that armor together, and it's a costly hobby and stuff like that. But yeah, it does make it does mean make kids happy. It makes grown-ups happy. So that's a nice thing. So what do you get out of it? Like, how is that? Was that your is it just because you love Stormtroopers so much, or was it just you wanted to kind of make a difference in kids? Because I know they do the things where they visit hospitals and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
what's your main
I
reward,
can
guess?
remember my first hospital visit was probably my first troop. Oh, was it summer of 2001? And it wasn't, I got into the Legion as an Imperial Royal Guard,
Hmm.
which is a very difficult costume, mostly because of the helmet. It's one piece, it comes down past your neck and rests on your shoulder. You know what an Imperial
Yeah,
Guard,
yeah,
a Royal looks like. Yeah, there's no airflow in that helmet. You can make it so that the visor isn't completely flush from the inside with a little bit of a gap. That allows for a little bit of airflow. But yeah, the first hospital visit that I did, we went into a room that had a youngin in it. Oh boy, he must have been about maybe 6, 7. And you don't know why they're in there
Yeah,
when you go in, and if their stay is going to be prolonged, or if they're ever even going to make it out of the hospital. But yeah, it was not the you go in because they're in there, and you're there for maybe 10, 15 minutes to make them forget about why they're there.
yeah.
Yeah. And then walking into something like that, and maybe their mom or their dad or siblings are there, and then the nurse tells them, you have companies. There's some folks that want to see you. And then you go walk in, and then they just light up.
Mhm.
And yeah, some of that hits you right in the gut. And for some of the face characters, they can see you, but us troopers behind helmets, sometimes we're glad we got those buckets on in the best way.
I could imagine. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good thing. Like I
Yeah.
said, it makes them
For the
forget,
most
about the situation, for however long you're
Mhm.
there, and then it sticks with them too. Even after you're gone, they're like, oh, that was so cool. They probably tell everybody, all the other kids in the house, like, oh, did you guys meet the stormtroopers? And that's pretty awesome. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I gotta say though, like, I do feel bad for that we usually have it's called Phoenix Fan Fusion we have on here. It's usually during the summer, like end of May, and like I always, Arizona, Phoenix, May.
Mhm.
It's like triple digits, head to toe stormtrooper armor, Darth Vader armor. Yeah. I don't see how they do it. I'm wearing shorts and a Star Wars t-shirt, and I'm sweating. So yeah. When you talk
No,
about the no airflow.
the flip side of it for me is yeah, just the fun being a 59-year-old kid. I'm my own action figure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so when I go to a convention like Steel City Con, we'll have one coming up here in April. For the little kids, yeah, I love giving little fist bumps and high fives, because sometimes they think, I'm standing there, I'm an animatronic, and then I turn and step this way, or I'll go out of my way to catch people's different attentions. With the kids, yeah, it's fun, but with adults, I'm not one of the stormtroopers like some of my brothers that when we went in December, one of my fellow TK brothers had a string of Christmas lights around his neck I'm not one of the happy dancy. When I get in armor, I'm a stormtrooper. I'm a pain in the ass. I'll go walking. I've had a lady that walked past me. We were standing in an intersection one time at Steel City Con, and she walked by. She didn't want to confront directly, so she just kind of walked passing in front of me from right to left. And as she exited the view she just kind of turned and went, boo, down with the Empire. And then she just disappeared into the crowd. And I was just, yeah, I would have had some fun with that. All right, let's see some scan docs or something to that effect.
Was she cosplaying as Marva from from
I
Andor?
like going up I'll go up to the front entrance where the pass checkers and stuff are, and I'll stop. I'll have my E11 in my holster and carry my DLT-19, and I'll kind of walk up one next to the ticket checkers and pass checkers, and I'll be like, "You getting public cooperation here? Everybody complying?" And they're taken aback. They're just like, "Oh yeah, everybody's good." I'm like, "Good to hear. You know where we are in the back if you need us." And then I'll just be on my way. Yeah, I like doing stormtrooper kind of things like that.
That's cool.
It's fun.
He said your own action figure.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
But me as a fan, I'm schooled in pretty much everything. I keep up with, listen to audio more than I watch. I think I've heard folks talk about the different films, the different series, the different books more than I've watched or read them. And I've done, I've back to back multiple times The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, Skeleton Crew. Audiobooks, I've been a big audiobook listener since Audible really started getting Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
Started putting together audiobooks now are pretty much kind of like the you're familiar with the radio dramas from
the early. Yeah.
They're pretty much sort of like that.
Yeah.
It's basically a film without the picture.
Somebody's reading. From the show, we all got into High Republic. So the second and third phase, I did all audiobooks. I'm actually still towards the tail end. But yeah, I mean, some of them are just like, you got the music playing and you can just close your eyes and, you're watching a movie. You're just building the rest of the set, with your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I also did the first Drawn book, the original Drawn book, Heir to the Empire. I did the audiobook. That was just like a special anniversary one. I think they did. That one was really good. It had all the sound effects and everything in there. So yeah, it's basically like you're rewatching the movie. So, and I do love the old radio dramas. I have them and listen to them from time to time. Those are always fascinating. So yeah,
that's where I brought up when I mentioned earlier about seeing that in what we call A New Hope. That's where I learned the pronunciation for Princess Leia's blockade runner was from listening to that.
You're like, oh, it's not the Tantive Ivy.
Yeah, the I and the E on it are not silent. And I've had other podcasters argue with me about it. Well, we don't say creative E because the spelling ends the same. I'm like, because it's spelled that way doesn't mean it's pronounced that way. Go look up in the dictionary, Tantivie. It is a word from our galaxy. It's an equestrian word, horse riding. It's another way of saying at a gallop.
So it wasn't the Sundered Heart?
No, it wasn't the Sundered Heart. So yeah, I do spend time listening when I hear somebody mispronouncing it. I'm usually yelling back to somebody talking to me from the past that you said that wrong I put posts up. I made a quick, like 5-second audio clip and threw it up on Twitter of voice actress Anne Sachs, who voiced Leia in the radio dramas, having a conversation with her father about that and using the Tantivie, and then he says Tantivie, and I'm like, even Pablo Hidalgo, people have gone after him asking, what's the proper way? And he's told them, I'm like, you've been schooled. It's in the radio drama. It's there. If you're saying it wrong, that's on you.
Yeah, that's probably the only place where it's ever said, right? And besides maybe the audiobooks for for New Hope.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's never spoken in A New Hope. It's not spoken in Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I cannot recall, I do not believe that it is spoken, though we see it in The Rise of Skywalker.
No, no.
Yeah, but the name of the ship was never spoken to my knowledge. And I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it was never spoken that I know of in any film version of a story. It's neat that Ricky brought up Heir to the Empire because I'm an oddball for a Gen Xer. I can remember that was the dark times.
Yeah.
Near the end of the dark times, the 13, 16 years between the end of Return of the Jedi.
Because that's like what, 91 that came out? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 91. That was a few years before the special editions and
I was
a few
10.
5 or 6 years before the first of the prequel films. Yeah, there was the only Star Wars that I can recall was the West End role playing game. It had the role playing game book that taught you how to role play, and it had a source book. And most all of that stuff is some parts of that is in Legends. I can remember going to, there used to be a bookstore that's long gone now called Walden Books in my local mall. And I went and I saw it. It was up on the new arrivals. There was no other Star Wars. And I would go into Walden and just look at, eventually ended up getting the role-playing game and the source book, even though I had never played role-playing games, just purely because there was Star Wars information there. So I saw it.
And that was like a D&D type game, right? If I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's based the same thing. It's just Star Wars. The Star Wars version of Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, sir. Yeah, I was already working my first job out of high school. So first paycheck. Yeah, I got it and I took it home and I got about halfway through and I just stopped dead. For me, it felt too science fiction-y. And to this day, I have never finished. I know how the story ends. We've heard over decades people talking about it. I've never done the 2 books that follow it. And after that, everything else that came out that was Legends, I never dove into.
Yeah, I have all 3 of the, I bought them actually at like a Goodwill that they had, maybe like a 75 cents each, years back. And they've been sitting on my shelf and I was like, I got to read. So I started reading the first one and then I was like, I kind of didn't really have time to sit there with the books. I'm like, let me get the audiobook. So then I started listening. I'm like, it was okay. Like I've read a few of like the EU books, like with the Vector Prime and some of the other ones and, the stuff with the Yushin Vong, whatever. And so like I've read a lot of that. And I read a lot of the stuff, the pre-Disney sale ones that are like Scoundrels with Han Solo and Plagueis and all that stuff. And the Darth Vader ones during the prequels. But like, I don't know. It's something about Heir of the Empire. I was listening to it. I mean, it was entertaining, but there was a lot of like, I don't want to say fan service, but there's a lot of callbacks to like a lot of the same quotes. Like Han says the same thing and Lando says the same thing. And, and I couldn't really understand why they were still running from the Empire, even though they defeated everybody. But yeah, it was good. It was entertaining, but yeah, not really. I guess I haven't, like you, I haven't read the other 2 yet. So it's on my to-do list though. So, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Legends just for me that even when, and mostly I would keep up with when I would go get monthly issues of Star Wars Insider, I would keep up with what was going on with those stories in different articles and things on it. Inside Insider, never really got into the books. And whenever I found out about different things like the Yizhan Vong, and I'm like, this is even more science fiction. Star Wars has always been fantasy, science fantasy, not science fiction. And I was just like, no, there's no. And then the really fun one is when the canon of the galaxy was, some people would say, was just wiped out and started over, which I disagree with. I was happy that the Legends stuff was branded Legends because in the galaxy, we have mythology in our galaxy here on our planet, all kinds of different mythology. So why can't the galaxy far, far away have its own mythology? Because it does. They're called Legends.
Yeah, it's like something that in universe, you're like, these are stories that, people who don't know the whole story of what happened with Luke and everybody, maybe they're coming up with their own ideas, kind of thing. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it was a Ahsoka Tano quote. There's truth in legends.
Yeah.
She's not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very happy that that was put. They're not, and it's been said on the PSW Senate podcast. All those stories are still here for us to enjoy, just like Ricky's going through them right now.
Yeah.
I chose for me because many of my generation got very angry about that. And they're still going on to this day, and it's part of the reason I recall correctly, because I'm speaking with the senator. Part of the reason why the PSW Senate exists is to talk about the fun of Star Wars.
Yeah.
You're worried about, there's still people on Twitter going on, and that whole side that a very smart podcaster that I miss greatly, it dealt specifically in spoilers, because I actively follow spoilers for new Star Wars coming. I know things about the Mando and Grogu, and I don't share them unless I'm asked. I've done this. There's a fellow that out Ricky's way. He's doing real life things now. He set down what he used to do, and he was one of the two best.
Are you gonna say Super Shadow?
Spoiler channels. No, one of them has become active again, and it's somebody that I support and follow. He's over in the UK. You may see him in the various social medias, Bespin Bulletin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would recommend following Bespin. You're not going to find the info on his website is back active again. You're not going to find the info that will, if you don't want to be spoiled, you're not going to find it in his headlines. If you go and click, I showed you the door. There you go. You go in and you click on the article and read it, because Bespin is very, very accurate. And how do I know this? From some of the other friends. I do have a fellow Gen Xer that lives just across the Ohio state line from me that was, spoilery stuff was dropped in his lap. He didn't actively go looking for it. And the next thing you know, he's got friends inside Lucasfilm. That's where this stuff comes from. It doesn't come from Reddit or someplace that used to be called 4chan, which is like a Reddit sort of. It doesn't come from, no, it comes from people working in the production, from editing, from the set, that are very, very careful in doing what they do. And most of the time, if you find the right places, you'll get the accurate. And if spoilery stuff has never bothered me at the time, I can remember finding the other one, and I haven't mentioned them till now, is Making Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, Jason Ward. Oh, he's something else. He has friends in Lucasfilm. And for a long time, he started his show in like 2013, starting to talk about the sequel trilogy stuff. He was getting info and wanted to do something with it about The Force Awakens. So he started a podcast called Now This Is Podcasting. And it's still, you can find it in different podcatchers. I still call it iTunes, Apple. It's on Spotify. I spent a couple months toward the fall of last year re-going through their entire library. 200 and almost 300 episodes.
Wow.
Just re-listening to the fun of, because I used to listen to it that long ago, and they're just a bunch of goofballs. They're very R-rated, but they're fun. They just have fun. So if you're good with swearing and stuff, you can go back and listen to what Jason had to share and find that 80 to 90% of it was dead on the money. And this is like a decade plus since we've got those films. And if you're up for those kind of shenanigans, a lot of fun. You got everything for all the sequel trilogies. You got stuff for Rogue One. You got stuff for Solo. Clean up into The Mandalorian.
During the prequels, I was like all in on spoilers. I even ended up finding like the synopsis and stuff online in the script, and so like I knew whatever was going to happen in the book, but just watching it was, in a theater at midnight was a different experience. But yeah, I don't know, for some reason after that, like I haven't really been like seeking out spoilers. Sometimes, I'll see stuff here and there, but like, yeah, I don't go like Ryan does that. He like tries not to watch even trailers because he wants to be, completely surprised when he goes in there and watches it the first time. But like, I don't mind trailer. I'll watch trailers. I'll watch some stuff here and there. Whatever gets released, and if I, hopefully I don't hear a major spoiler, but yeah, it still doesn't really ruin the experience for unless, maybe something like, like I think I kind of figure out Han was probably gonna die in Force Awakens, but I think that was just like, common sense what was gonna go down. But yeah, those guys, they, some of those guys, they do get, insider information, and it just could be something said in passing, or someone's actively leaking. But yeah, a lot of those things are, so don't go in there if you don't you don't want to get spoiled. But yeah, a lot of times they are pretty much. You go back and listen to some podcasts from like like you said, that time period. Yeah, a lot of that stuff did end up
Well, the
coming to
trick
fruition.
the trick to it is if it's early on started, because I can remember listening to all the stuff that Jason had. This was like a year and a half before the film was released. So by the time I went and sat my butt down in the theater, the last thing I was thinking of, yeah, Jason was talking, and his crew were talking about this and that and the other. No, I'm hooked into the story.
Yeah.
And then after I come out, and maybe it's a week, maybe it's a 2 weeks, maybe it's a month later, then I go back and listen to one of their episodes and get their thoughts and opinions on what they thought about the film and the story and some of the other things that I could really care less about. Especially even now, I've stopped. I've hit the pause button and stopped when people just go too far in overboard, worried about the writing, the acting, the directing, the scripting, the writing, and the lighting, and the staffing. I could care less about that. We can go watch Disney Gallery if you want those sort of things. That's those folks' opinions, and maybe I've heard so much of that. It's literally burnt my brain. I want to hear about fun Star Wars.
It's almost like, getting served at a restaurant. You're too busy asking, what's in this instead of like tasting it.
The ingredients. Yeah. Enjoy the food. Don't worry about how it was put together, or unless maybe you want to do that at home because you're not gonna.
And I get it. I like watching. I used to love watching when they have the DVD extras, the bonus. I used to watch all that stuff. And I still enjoy watching documentaries and all. What's the, all the ones that they came out during the prequel era. I watched what was it, the Empire Dreams? That's one of my favorite documentaries of all time. Like I like doing that, but I do it to a point where, like, because I enjoy watching, I want to see the scene that I like and how they made it, not like, oh, that guy wrote that and that's why they did that. Because that gets like are you really into it, or you just into screenwriting? Like you can poke holes in any Star Wars thing, if you wanted to, even the OT and everything. But why would you want to? And I always say that, like, even my least favorite Star Wars thing is like a million times better than some other franchise.
Yeah, that right there comes from another long time podcast that I've been listening to that's been going, the Cantina Cast. Albert Villa and the Cantina Cast. Yeah, they're not, Albert doesn't particularly, and he'll look at it this the same way. I mean, he's just a guy just like me and Ricky right now, sitting behind microphones talking about Star Wars stuff. We could poke holes in this and look at but it's wasting time. You'd rather talk about the fun of Star Wars. Yeah, that's where I gravitate towards more so now than ever before. I'd listen to different pods about collecting. Any kind of pod most of them are just generally covering what is going on, what's going on with stuff in
you had
comics.
mentioned before, like before we started recording that, we only release our show like once a month. Like sometimes we'll put one or two out during the month, but but that's because we're busy doing Star Wars stuff, and in real life things. I do tend to notice that the ones that have like YouTube channels where they're posting constantly, like streaming 5 hours a day, or they're posting everything, ranting about this and that. Like, when do you get a chance to watch Star Wars? Like, when did you watch this? If your first time watching a show is like while you're live streaming and reacting, that you're not really consuming it, and you only watched it that once, and then put it aside. Like a lot of times, the reason why we, OG fans, like we like those movies because we had 3 movies, and that's all we watched over and over and over again. So
Mm-hmm.
we got to see every little detail, like you said, like you find screenshots of the the stormtrooper armor, and you get every little single crevice and everything from who's standing in the background, and what's this costume made out of, and the music motif that's playing right here. Now it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's not that there's so much content, it's that there's so much like ancillary content and reactive content that people just I mean I've seen people just watch reaction videos and commentary, and they haven't even seen the movie. Why would you go that route first? Just watch it first and then come up with your opinion. So that's kind of like the trouble with the it's nice that we have the technology to be able to like voice our opinions on stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're consuming more of that than you're of the actual franchise content, then that's yeah, that's a little odd. But I mean it's not odd if you're still enjoying it. If you're still enjoying it, that's fine. That's great. But if there's a lot of, not to throw shade at anybody, but there's a lot of these podcasts and YouTube channels that they make a living off of the negative algorithm, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather just watch the shows, man. And collect my toys and dust everything in my Star Wars room. And play Outlaws. Like that's how I spend my time. And that usually us, at the podcast, we're usually, each of us are doing something, Star Warsy in some form or fashion. So, like you listen to the podcast, and you have the 501st stuff keeping you busy, and you're constantly in Star Wars like all the time. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Funny enough, when I go to work and I'm in the lumber yard, I work in a little mom and pop hardware store's lumber yard, only 3 miles down the road from where I live. But when I go to work, you can tell, you'll know me when you run into me. I have, I dress imperial when I'm out in the world. Just like early on, I popped the cam up. So
Yeah.
Ricky, I'm wearing my kepi. I'm wearing one of my black service kepi right now. I have another one that I paid a good $70 off of a costumer for, that isn't quite screen accurate. And this costume maker, their other stuff is really good, but it's not the correct shape. So I have my olive regular line officers is also enlisted. We've learned that watching Andor. I have the olive one. I have the black one. Black is Imperial Navy. It's also Stormtrooper Corps, Imperial Security Services, and I have it's patterned off of in 1980s military U.S. Army issue field jacket, but it's all black. Got the 2 cogs in the proper places on your shoulders, and my garrison ID. And I usually wear my jack boots, which was part of my Imperial bridge crew, scanning crew uniform. I wear them out, and regular green work trousers. And I've been ID'd when the customer comes in and recognizes the cap and the Imperial crest on my shoulder, and they're like, "Oh, Star Wars," and I'm like, "Yes, sir." And then some folks have even gone so far. Somebody actually ID'd me. "You're in the 501st," and I was like, "Yes, I am," because I carry garrison cards with me in my wallet. If somebody's that interested, I'll hand them a card, and I'm like, "If you think you got that kind of interest and you want to start working on something, this is where you go." So I'm actively recruiting
Yeah.
while I'm at work.
Like, join the Empire.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, is there anything before we get out of here, is there anything that you wanted any specific topic you wanted to cover? Anything I know you
I
listen to podcasts, or anything you want to bring up on a podcast?
no, I originally got on social media, and it was specifically Twitter, under a different handle,
Hmm.
which is now long gone. There are very few people that still will bring it up every once in a while, and I'm like, okay, if that's how they remember me and know me, that's fine. Yeah, I originally got on there because I wanted to be friends with all these different podcasters I was listening to, because they describe themselves the same way that me and Ricky are. We're just folks sitting behind a microphone, and somebody pushes record, and we start spitting word vomit about Star Wars, whatever Star Wars thing that might be. I wanted to be friends with them, and I'm like, well, that was a way, because before that, I didn't want anything to do with social media. And the next thing I know, 2020, well, I got it started in 2018. So by 2020, when the world got turned upside down, and I was sending voicemails. That was my chosen way to interact instead of writing. I would rather I'm listening to you. Would you want to hear from me? So I'm going to send you like a 2 or 3 minute long voicemail talking about whatever the thing is. Yeah, for a while I made friends, and then somebody wrote me up and claimed that I was harassing them, which was not the case, because I had other friends that I was part of different little live streams that backed me up. But the greater part of it took off so fast that I lost a lot of different friends. And then after a while, over the years, podcasting has changed quite a bit. And it seems to have reverted back to like when I first started listening. There almost nobody interacts with different shows. They're just kind of secluded to themselves. But anybody looking for different things to listen to, I can point you to some really good listening. I call it gold. And I'm happy to share. I just listened to something over the past couple months on a Brit podcast. There's primary collectors, but they got to talk with the graphic designer that worked for Lucasfilm making both seasons of Andor. And they split it into just season 1. They split it into 5 different episodes covering the 12 episodes of Andor. And he got to spill the beans on so much of what it took of him being that one little cog, because that's how he sees himself, in the part of Lucasfilm doing what he did to put Andor season 1 together. And it is some of the best. If you want to know what it was like being inside Lucasfilm, look this up. They're 2 hour long each, the 5. So that's like 10 hours. And if you're schooled in like setting it at 1.5 and still being able to catch the details, do that, or 2 times. I've listened to it twice. It's on the Generation Skywalker podcast. February of last year. Yeah. They talked with Baz Gingell. And it is some of, if you want to know what it's like inside Lucasfilm, it's not what you think it's like inside. Go listen to him. He will tell you. And he's a fan. He's a collector. That's what got him. He's a brick. And being able to talk with those fellas, most of whom are Gen Xers like me, about this kind of stuff. They're still hoping that maybe when Barry is working on other things, maybe not Star Wars, but work so he can make a living. When he's got the time, hopefully they can get together and talk about what he was involved in for making season 2 happen.
Interesting.
Yes, really, really good stuff.
Yeah, see, I like stuff like that, like where you actually learn, something from the
that's
cool.
This, Ricky, would be like the audio version of watching Disney Star Wars Gallery, sitting down with John and Dave and everybody that it took to put together, like Mando or Deb Chow making Obi-Wan Kenobi, stuff like that. This is like the
have you listened
audio.
to Pod of Rebellion? The one
Vanessa's doing.
Yeah.
Vanessa's doing it. Taylor Gray's doing it. I did the first few episodes, and then I don't know, for whatever reason I fell off.
Yeah, I think I listened to like half of the first one. I got to get back. I used to listen to we talked off the air. Like I used to listen to a lot of podcasts back then, but I think now, like I used to try to listen to stuff when I was either taking the bus or even when working, but now like it's hard for me to like focus. I don't know if it's due to getting up there more in age, but like I can't like pay attention to podcasts and just have them on while I'm more actively working. But
sir, are not going to pull that getting old. I will let you know when you're getting old.
Yeah, I might like to think of myself as I'm not. So my older brothers are Gen X, but I'm like an elder millennial. So, or what is that, Xennial? Is that they call it the X Xennial?
Zillennial. Yeah. I've heard that term before. Yeah.
Zennial. Yeah, because grew up with analog, and I can use a rotary phone and and a smartphone.
Yeah, I've noticed that. That's the same thing with my daughters. I have three girls,
Hmm.
um, who are mostly Gen Z. And I noticed that somebody brought this up. I can't remember where I heard it, but you can tell where kids were, which kids were raised by Gen Xers because they have their own traits about their generation. But yeah, my girls just kind of like you. Yeah, even though they're totally plugged into modern day stuff, they learn. I taught them things that I was taught and passed on to
Yeah.
them. So they have character traits from me, and some of their beliefs and the way they act aren't exactly entirely Gen Z.
That's like I said, I told you how my daughter, she's a little older now, but yeah, ever since she was a kid, like I had her playing like Atari games when she was very little, and then
Mm-hmm.
80s movies, we watched, Fly the Navigator, Never Ending Story, and all that stuff. So like now that we're watching like Stranger Things with her, she gets all those references, which most of the kids that
Yep.
were her age watching that, like they've never seen Never Ending Story, or the original Tron or something like that. So yeah, it's I mean I know there's like a big nostalgia, or at least there was for a while with the 80s stuff. But a lot of it was good, a lot of it wasn't good. But I grew up in it and I loved it, and that and like early 90s stuff also. But yeah, it's like you gotta pass on what you've learned, and I
Mm-hmm.
think because of that, because I kept showing her old movies and stuff like that, and then Star Wars, of course. Like she has no problem watching, anything that's even in black and white. Like she loves watching the Addams Family, the old black and white TV show. Um, she hasn't watched what's the new one that they have with Wednesday. We haven't watched it yet because she's a Addams Family purist. So, but
That's neat.
but yeah, it's
That's
you gotta teach your kids. That's why it's kind of like I always have this thing like when I see people saying, "Oh, my kids don't like Star Wars," like no kids like it anymore. It's like, well, it's because you taught them that. Probably, you probably walked around the house ranting about Snoke, you know. And of course they're not
yeah.
going to want to watch the thing their dad hates. So
I do hear that there's a dad and son, a very very small podcast. It hasn't really been putting episodes out lately from the Chicago area called Big T Little T, and um, the dad Todd Hoffman is late Gen X and has his opinions on different things Star Wars, and I can tell some of his opinions have rubbed off onto his son looking at things. I think, just my opinion, is too overboard critical. I'm like, you're missing the fun of it, but yeah,
yeah.
and I disagree with quite a few of those different. So yeah, those are things that are passed on.
You saying the overly critical, like that reminds me of the line in Attack of the Clones where Anakin's talking to Padme about Obi-Wan, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and George Lucas wrote it, so I always take that line where he's like he's overcritical, and he says all this stuff. Like, is he talking about the fans and the reviewers? Is that his little dig back at everybody from episode one?
Yeah, there's even from back, and folks haven't really caught on to this until over the past few years. There's always been some portion of fandom, even when the fandom was just new and growing, that has had problems with whatever the next new Star
Oh
Wars
yeah,
is.
Yoda was a
Like,
Muppet. There's teddy bears and Return of the Jedi.
yeah, there was a fanzine newsletter that
Yeah.
people were making when Empire Strikes Back came out. That you can find it. I saw it just floating around Twitter somewhere the past week or two, where somebody was saying mentioning about fans having there weren't fan issues back in the original trilogy days. Yes, there
No, yeah.
were. This fanzine had an issue with Empire that they didn't feel that it was worthy to follow
Yeah.
up, which that's fine, your opinion. And I've always stuck to this that I'm grateful to be told somebody wants to put these stories together and share them with us. They're not making it for your wants. If you feel that it's not, it should have been put, and it's not made tailored to you. Every storyteller, it's their story to tell in the fashion that they choose to tell it. I learned a very valuable lesson in with Solo, a Star Wars story. 2016, listening to different pods at the time when we were learning about everything that was going on, putting it together, and the things that Phil Lord and Chris Miller did wrong and were let go. They weren't doing the job they were hired to do. They were just having their own kind of fun with the script, which turned Larry Kasdan inside out because him and his son were the ones that wrote it. And every next day they'd go watch the dailies and stuff that were filmed. And it's just like, what are you people doing? This isn't what I wrote. That's why they were let go. And that's why Ron Howard had to come in. And then listening to people talking about, but well, why do we need this? And then when I sat down and watched it, and that my own opinion, I smacked myself upside my own head with my own opinion. No Star Wars is ever about what we want. That's not how this works. Yeah. Somebody has a story they want to tell you. And if you're holding on too tight with it and feel that it should be, well, all Narranite wasn't Han Solo. All right. And I hate doing this because it takes away from the fun part of opinions are neither right nor wrong. They're both. We can agree on them or disagree on them. But Han Solo is a character.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is an actor. Harrison Ford is not Han Solo. Han Solo is whoever the storyteller tells you that he is.
That's so like saying you can't enjoy Indiana Jones because he's also Han Solo. You know, he's an actor.
To me, they're just two completely different stories. It happens to be the same actor.
Yeah.
Like people going on about different things. Luke, that's not my Luke Skywalker. Oh no, Luke Skywalker belongs. Mark Hamill learned that straight up, and it's on the director and the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's sitting, him and Ryan, and he's like, The Last Jedi, that's about me. That's me. And Ryan's like, yeah, that's you. And then him fundamentally disagreeing with, and then at one point toward the end of that, Mark says, well, at the end of it, it's Luke Skywalker's not really mine. I'm hired to come in and do it. I'm like, that's exactly it. Luke Skywalker belongs to whoever the storyteller is, and he tells you that about Luke. You don't have to like it.
Well, that's always like a thing. Like even like now with the Ben Solo stuff, like, oh, well, Adam Driver said, like, he's not a writer. You know, neither is Mark Hamill. Like, these guys are great actors. They're not screenwriters. They're not storytellers. You know, they're performers. No. You know, like.
So, yeah, at some point, an actor can have some input on his character, and agree with maybe he can change the storyteller, whether it's a director or whoever.
Well, yeah, like with Harrison, with the I know, he says that he ad-libbed that part. You know, and so I mean, like, yeah, stuff like that's good. And like, I always take issue with people saying that they didn't like The Last Jedi and the writing was terrible. Carrie Fisher helped write that story. Like she wrote some of the scenes, and she was actually a screenwriter. So,
very few people acknowledge and understand that. Yeah, she's a script doctor for decades and decades. Yeah, you can disagree with, and that's fine. But to go if that's what you want to choose to spend your time doing, I think you're wasting time. But that's just my opinion.
Like I like to analyze why the character did that instead of being angry that the character did that. Like, well, why did Rose fly into Finn? There's a reason for that character doing that someone put into thought into writing that in there. It's not just like, oh, because it's terrible. Like, you didn't even analyze the scene. Like, go rewatch it. I always tell people, just go, log off, go, pop.
That's another one that makes me laugh too, Rick, is when people claim lazy writing. And I'm just like, do you realize how much of an insult that is to the storyteller? Because you think that they're not thinking about and talking with other friends and other folks that are involved with this, putting the thought, love, and care, and you think they're not, because there's many different places that we can see they share it with us. They're telling you that they do. You just happen to not agree with it for whatever reason. You don't agree with it, which is also fine.
It's not a choose your own adventure.
No, it's not. No. And I hope it never comes down to, there are points right now, most of everybody that is putting Star Wars things together and telling us are fans, I think, that were taught and schooled by George Lucas. Maybe not directly like Dave Filoni was, but in ways they're fans just like us.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams, he's a fan just like us. So is Ryan. So is Jon Favreau. So is Deb Chow.
These people, they grew up watching Star Wars, just like we
Yes.
did. Yeah.
And they were fortunate enough to be able to be in the spot. Even the authors that write the books, Claudia Gray, John Jackson Miller, James Luceno, who we sadly haven't heard from any news stories in quite a while, but all the other new authors now too. All of them, they're all fans, each in their own way, and fortunate enough to be in a position to tell us a story, whichever that may be. Some of my very favorites I go back to again are the From a Certain Point of View books from the 3 trilogy. Yeah, each of those has 40 short stories from 40 different authors.
I think I've only done the first one so far. I know Ryan's listened to all 3. He's read all 3 of those. But yeah, he loves those ones too. So
Yeah, I did all 3. And A New Hope, yeah, I go back to it most often for a select few of the story. The very first one in it is a gut puncher all by itself. It's Ramus, and it's called Ramus, and it's Captain Antilles on the Tantive after leaving Scarif. We find out what's going on with the ship. It's not in the best shape. And then, yeah, he's sitting and writing a letter to his wife and daughters. We already know how that ends up. Yeah, it's a gut puncher in it. There's so many good stories in there.
yeah, I gotta read the other 2 of those. Those ones are great. So, like you said, there's like so much content to consume. Like we're kind of in a golden age of Star Wars content, because there's like so much you can, from that stuff into like Visions and all the TV shows, and we got a movie coming up. Like it's a fun time, and then we got been sidetracked with the Star Wars Unlimited game, me and the guys from the podcast. So yeah, there's always tons of stuff.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm literally Star Warsing every day. It's with me by my own choice in some shape, fashion, or form. Just like right before Rick and I were working out, figuring out how to hook this thing up. He sent me here, try this link. And I'm like, all right, grab the pod player on my data pad and hit the pause, because I was listening to, while I was sitting in the kitchen working on armor and blaster parts and listening to, I'm like, okay, I get a chance to sit and talk with somebody I consider a friend, because I listen all the time. You just don't, I should send voicemails in and interact a little bit more. I was good at it for a while, and then after a while, I got in my own way, and I need to cut that out.
I did notice that. I was like, why did your name change? Like, like I was confused from, like, okay, so now I know.
That's because what I was known for doing was grabbing different things that I was listening to and posting them in hopes of getting other folks. It didn't have anything to do with me. I'm like, listen to these people. This stuff's fun. Yeah. And in 2020, that was really easy, because we were all cooped up trying to keep safe and couldn't. If you were smart about it, you pretty much stayed in one spot to avoid the shenanigans that were going on in the world.
That's why we started, recording. Like, we've been doing the Senate since, me and Ron and Steve were talking about it yesterday. Like, we've been doing them since, 2016?
October of 2020.
No, but we actually been doing the Senate since 2016. But then in 2020, we're like, I got a computer now. Why don't we just record these? Put them out. I got nothing better to do.
There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of podcasts that started, and a good chunk of them are long gone and fell off for whatever reason.
I know there was one that after we had did a couple episodes, I think it was like, cause we started in October, like I said, and then by December, when you're going through and look, say, is anybody listening? Look, I just Google our name, and another Positively Star Wars podcast popped up. I'm like, what is this? But yeah, like, personally put out like maybe one episode, and then that was it. But I mean, it takes a lot of work. I mean, it's fun, but if you don't got the free time, it's doing editing and putting it on social media and stuff like that. So
when I get the chance, which isn't often because my work schedule interferes with it, the super teeny tiny one with a fellow as a listener just like me that lives on the other side of Pennsylvania, near Lancaster, near Harrisburg. And he decided to start a show, He doesn't really have it on Apple. He doesn't have it on Spotify because Spotify was giving him issues. So for right now, he has it on a tiny podcast catcher called Spreaker. And it's called the Blue Milk Cafe. And it's one that probably 3 years ago, he was tired of talking by himself because it can get very hard to do a one-man show.
Yeah.
And he had asked if anybody was interested. And I'm like, Jeff, I've been listening to you forever and interacting with you on the different socials. I said, I'll come sit and talk with you. So when an opportunity allows, usually we record on a Saturday. He's got a new one out with a fella that he was doing a different podcast with before he started this. Yeah, it's out there. I got to sit down with him on, what was it, Tuesday? Tuesday, when that was Tuesday. The Mandalorian and Grogu, the actual 2 minute and 20-second trailer dropped, and we got to do a quick little 30 minutes. If you choose to listen to that,
you have to send me that. Drop that link on, or send it to me on Twitter. That way you can check it out. Yeah, I like listening to whenever every now and then I'll be like, well, let me look, what Star Wars podcasts are out there. So I'll just Google or I'll drop it in in the podcatcher and try to see, I'll just type in Star Wars, and I usually try to find the ones that are I've never heard of, so that way I can give them some listens and stuff like that. Because a lot of them are just fan. We're just fans doing this. We might as well be on a ham radio.
Yeah, before Ricky Pumps record, he did say you managed to talk to a few other pods, and I said, yeah, I did. Back in December, I've got some friends that do another one that started around 2016 called Wookiee Radio. It's 3 friends that are all Gen Xers. One lives all the way up in Massachusetts. Derek Nadal. Ken Rose, who lives just below Cleveland, Ohio, and worked for professional wrestling. He's a wrestler. He's a stunt guy. He's a nerd. And Michael Emke, who lives down in Florida and worked for Disney MGM. He's worked there for 30 years as a sound engineer. Wow. Yeah, and they get together. They've been dropping pockets of episodes instead of weekly, because Mike's the one that does the recording and the editing. He's a big sound nerd. He's an audiophile. He loves his audio stuff because he's fortunate to do what he does working for Disney, for MGM Studios. I get to sit at beginning of December for probably about 90 minutes and talk with them. I've been listening to them since the day they started. And that was a lot of fun. There's a lot of costume talk in that. So yeah, I'll drop you those in Twitter on the links. Send me reminders if there's anything that I forgot.
Yeah. I'm glad we did this. This is
I was just humbled. I was the one that started this. I saw something that Rick had posted on Twitter, and I was like, did you ever want to talk to a listener? And it took a little bit to iron it out. And whenever I saw it, he's like, yeah, we can work. I'm like, really? Whoa, okay. I'm in.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk to fellow Star Wars fans.
We hooked it up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, you able to do it? I'm like, I've got the entire day off. Let me know when.
Cool.
And we
figured meant to be by the Force. We brought us together.
We figured it out. I will warn you, if you get to the Blue Milk Cafe, the Imperial Stormtrooper Corps is not connected to the Navy or the Army of the Empire. They are their own separate. But listening to me in off-duty hours, you'd swear I was a sailor. I warn you that. I don't talk in negative stuff, but there can be, this is a different franchise. How did, what was it, Star Trek The Voyage Home? When Spock mentioned colorful metaphors, I think would be an appropriate way to describe it. Yeah, there's no, I don't be positive, but yeah, there's, I can get colorful at times, but in the interest of having fun.
Duly noted. Yeah, I don't have any problem. That's fine. All right, so yeah, that's good. So I guess this come to the end. So it's goodbye from me, and then goodbye from Anthony.
Yes. Glory to the Empire. Serve your local Imperial garrison.
Yeah.
If you want to know how or where to do that, ask me, imperialactivity@yahoo.com. I will be happy to show you the way to start.
Awesome. All right, cool. So I guess you'll hear from us again. But yeah, we're gonna try to put out some more regular shows pretty soon. So yeah. So may the force be with you.
Go switch off.
I am the Senate.
Be sure to follow us online. We're at Facebook at PSW Senate. Join our PSW Star Wars Facebook group where we all are in there interacting. You can find us on Twitter at PSW Senate. On Instagram, we're at PSW Senate Podcast. And on TikTok, we're at PSW Senate Podcast. We look forward to hearing from you.
The Force will be with you, always.